You know what? I'll just say this. Is the grocery store gonna get mad at me if I complain about the carts not being returned?
Wait, what?
Like if I come on the podcast and complain about something or talk about something,
yeah.
Am I supposed to talk about no people, places, or things while I'm here?
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
Hello everyone, how are you today? I hope that you're having a really good day so far. If you are new here, my name's Taylor. This is Star Baby Moonchild. We come to you from Baltimore City, Maryland. And here on my YouTube channel, I feature content that's generally focused on knitting and spinning. We will be discussing many different subjects today. The first will likely be what I'm currently wearing, which is my newest finished sweater, as well as the couple projects I've been knitting the last week or so since I last sat down to share with you all. And I'm going to answer some of the questions that you all have submitted to my Google form, which I have linked in the description box below. If there's any question that you would like to ask and have answered, you can leave it in that form and I will eventually get around to checking it and answer it here on my channel. Right, and of course, if you do like my content, give it a thumbs up. It really helps in growing my channel here on YouTube. And for all of you out there, those who've been listening for a long time, those who are brand new to my channel, I am so glad that you're here. It makes me so happy to see that you're in the comments, that you're watching this premiere on Sunday, and it really is the highlight of my week. Before we get into all the knitting, I will just preface this episode in saying that I have been feeling like a holiday hangover. I use the term hangover loosely because I don't drink. I stopped drinking 2 years ago. I am a completely sober person, and I don't talk about that a lot because I don't want people to assume anything of me. I just would rather be myself and present myself as a person.
Is there a secret race of reptile people controlling our governments and enslaving humanity?
But I have a lot of family struggles, and the holidays are so challenging for me personally, as I'm sure they are for some of you out there. And now that all of the twinkly lights and the shopping sales have all kind of like faded away a little bit, I don't have those exciting mail deliveries and decorations to distract me from, you know, some of the stuff that kind of pulls me down. And I say all that to mention that if it weren't for this podcast, I would not be getting out of bed on a Saturday morning. I would not be taking care of my physical form and like washing my hair or brushing my teeth. I don't think I would be. I think that I would not have the motivation to take care of those basic needs. I know that's a pattern of mine, and it's the consistency of showing up and being here that keeps me on track to just taking care of myself in the simplest of ways, and to just show up no matter how much or how little I've accomplished. I do wish I could like tell you all the tea. I don't think it's the appropriate time or place to dive into all those details, but I feel like this has all been really weighing on me because of what my true New Year's resolution is, I don't know. But I decided that I really wanted to participate in a weekly or semi-weekly knit night. I am very socially isolated.
I make loneliness work for me. My best accessory? Loneliness.
And I just don't trust people. I like people. I especially love people here online. And I love many people I meet in person, of course, but I just don't trust people easily. I think I put way too much stock into what other people think and perceive of me in general, like many people do. I think a lot of people struggle with that. And that's sort of why I post online, because I can just be my authentic self and share it with the world. And if you're here for it, you're here. Where am I going with this? My point is that I wanted to go out into the world, like out of my house, and like do something with people. That was something that I felt like would be a really good thing, like a challenging thing for me to do for myself. And last week I was going to talk about that. And I was having such a hard time recording last week and getting my thoughts out of my mouth which is another challenge of mine, which is why I intentionally upload to YouTube, because it gives me the opportunity to listen to what I have to say in private, edit out all of my ums and ahs and weird mouth clicks, and then present whatever it is I feel like presenting to the internet, which is usually the best parts of what I actually have to offer. But I forgot to even mention it, which I don't think was conscious at the time, but I noticed, oh, I must have unconsciously forgotten to tell you all that I'm gonna go outside my house and I'm gonna meet people. And then I was like, okay, I put myself back a week. I meant to do this last week, but I'm gonna do it this week. And then the knit night was like full and I'm on the wait list. So I don't know if it's gonna happen, but I am making a point to mention it here on my channel and talk a little bit about that, so that as I move forward in time and space, I can update you further, because that is how I intend to challenge myself this year. The last couple New Year's resolutions I have actually stuck to. 2 years ago, it was to completely abstain from alcohol for just a month. I wanted to do a dry January. I felt so good at the end of that month that I continued that challenge for the entire year, and I committed to 1 year of alcohol abstinence. And then I just felt so good physically and mentally, and it benefited my health so much. I live with an autoimmune condition. It's spondylitis and psoriatic arthritis, so it's inflammation of my cartilage, which is very painful and debilitating. I'm in a state of remission, which is wonderful, and I love that for me. So I've continued my absence of alcohol for that reason. But also I find that it really does help me facilitate being my most best. And there are things in life that challenge us all, and a lot of the time we can't anticipate when it's going to happen. And I feel like being free of drugs and alcohol helps me be ready for when the worst is about to come, which is part of my sort of catastrophic thinking. But I've gone way into a long rabbit hole of things about me, which I don't know why I feel like I need to discuss all that with you all, except that it's just kind of what weighs on me a lot right now. I just hope that if you're out there and you're wondering if you should stop drinking or smoking or whatever it might be, and you want to feel less alone in that task, then I'm right here. And I love that. I love that for us. I love that for me. If you do drink, if you do smoke, no judgment here. My very best friends do. One of the reasons I felt motivation to attend a knit night was because I heard of the closing of one of my favorite local-ish yarn stores. The Knot House in Frederick, Maryland is closing its doors. And I do believe it's because Kathy, the co-owner or owner, is retiring. I think that's the major reason. So I'm happy for her to take that time to live her best life. It is sad to see another yarn store close. I don't know if I'm going to go out of my way to visit before it's, you know, gone, but I've been thinking a lot about them, and it did kind of spark my desire to visit a yarn store close to me. I work in the Hunt Valley area, and there is a yarn store in, I think, Timonium, that's called the Black Sheep Yarn Store or something, and I want to go there, and I know that they have a weekly knit night. It's actually interesting the way that they structure it. You can sign up to have a spot online. It's a $15 fee, which you convert into a gift card once you show up. So you pay $15 to save your spot, and then you can use that $15 on whatever you want. I think either that at that time or at a later date. So I go online, I'm trying to sign up, and it's full. So I'm on the wait list. We'll see what happens. I'm thinking that I might just dip my toes into the outside world of yarny things a little earlier than the start of the knit night. That way, if I don't get a spot, then I can just poke my head in, see what they have available, and just pick something up while I'm there, with or without actually staying for the knitting. Moving on, I have finished my Throwover sweater. I was up until about 12:30 last night finishing the second half of my second sleeve, and then weaving in all the ends to block it overnight so that it can be dry and ready to wear today. So this is my first time wearing this sweater. Typically I like to wear a sweater for a couple days before I talk about it, because that way I can kind of get a sense of how it subtly shifts in fit. When a sweater is blocked, it's completely two-dimensional flat, and then you put it on your warm three-dimensional body and it'll kind of shorten in the sleeves and broaden in the chest, or you know, it might do different things depending on the fiber content and the construction of the yarn. Sometimes it might even start pilling right away, and then you kind of know that to mention in conversation on the subject of the garment. I could literally spend all day picking pet hair out of the sleeves of this garment, and that is not a criticism, of course, of the fabric. It's just the simple fact that it may not best match my lifestyle. You'll see me a lot of the times gravitate towards more kind of softer colors that don't hold as much contrast to my pet hair. But I really do love the garment in general and the fabric that I knit. It is a bit of a looser gauge for this yarn construction. It is sold as a DK. The sweater is marketed for worsted, but because it's a woolen spun fiber, it has a little bit more body to it than a typical DK weight yarn. So it kind of walks the line between DK and worsted weight. When I bend my elbow, you can kind of see my skin through the stitches, and that's because it's it's a looser gauge fabric, which makes it nice and light and a little bit more drape. It's a little less stiff and a bit more relaxed. So I like that, but I'm a little worried in time it might wear out at the elbows, which is why I'm happy to have plenty of leftover yarn from this project. I have an entire skein I didn't crack into. I'm sure I can knit an entire hat out of what I have left over from this project. So I really only used 3 skeins of Harrisville Designs Nightshade yarn for the body of the sweater. And then because this might be the last time I review the details of this project, I will mention that I used my hand spun. It's made from a Jacob fleece that was machine carded. And I spun a bit heavy, probably heavier than any other yarns in the sweater, and with the highest twist, so it's a little bulky. The second contrast color is Brooklyn Tweed's Shelter yarn in the Caraway color. It's a gray and yellow marl. The third contrast color is Stephen and Penelope's Bicycle yarn in the color, I want to say, Tiger or something? Shucks, I don't know the name of the color, in their Bicycle base, which is a fingering weight yarn, worsted spun, and I think a 2 or 3 ply, and I held that double to get more of a worsted weight yarn. I very much enjoy the fit of this garment. I think because I chose the appropriate size for my figure. For reference, I have a 32-inch bust that's around the widest part here, and I picked the second smallest size, which I think is about 40 inches in the chest. It can feel a little constricting around the shoulders, like right around where all this color work is. It can feel just like I think it's like a warm kind of embrace feel on this garment. It's not like the other yoke sweaters that I talked about in a couple of my previous videos. I think it was a few weeks back. I reviewed all of my top-down yoke sweaters. This one I think fits as good as my favorite. And I think it'll continue to fit better as it's worn. And that's mostly because I did knit the sleeves a little too long, which I always do on purpose, because as the sweater is worn and you're bending your elbows and you're, you know, kind of shaping the mold of the sweater to fit you, I do find that the bend in the elbow will shorten the length of the forearm. And earlier when I first put the sweater on, and I was like, oh goodness, these sleeves are way too long, I actually rolled them up thinking that I might wear it that way. And then I thought, Taylor, you know better. You know that it's going to shrink. So just wear it regular. And in the few hours since then, it's definitely eaten up some of the length already, and I think it fits quite well. I did modify this pattern very slightly by adding decreases at the side body. I think I might have only decreased 3 times, 2 stitches on each side, equidistant from each other down until I got to the ribbing. And then when I got to working the upper arms, or each of the sleeves rather, I read the instructions and I became a little apprehensive because for me personally, the upper arm diameter is a lot narrower than I typically knit. I prefer for my 40-inch bust sweater to have about 14 inches of 14 inches in diameter of the upper arm sleeve. That's what I feel like looks the most casual on my body. It looks like it matches the body of my 8 inches of positive ease better to have that amount of ease in the arm. And I think everybody's arm diameter is different relative to their body. I don't know. I think I have a pretty standard arm, maybe a narrower upper arm than most people. But I know that I like to have 14 inches in the upper arm of my sleeves. So I think that this one was closer to 12, if I'm not mistaken. Something close to that, if I recall. And so when I read to decrease as early as like the first few inches and then every few inches, I got nervous because I did not want to end up with sleeves that fit too tight. I just got a little anxious. So I was like, no, I'm just gonna keep knitting straight because I wanted it to have some ease in the arms. I do regret not decreasing sooner. I added 3 decrease rounds with 2 stitches decreased each time in the last few inches, and that just brought it in enough that it didn't fit like an entire like bell sleeve sort of shape. Like it's just a straight looking sleeve, which I think is very casual, and it has a very kind of loose casual cuff. So wow, so much cat hair. Part of me felt like I should rip back to just under the elbow and add additional decreases for it to fit a little bit more like shaped to my form. I don't know that that's necessary. I think I'm happy enough with the very loose fitting shape of the sleeve that I'm just gonna go with it and keep it as is. I do like that the armpits are not all up in my armpits. They fit a little bit lower than the actual area so that this fabric won't fill over time. It wouldn't be a Thread to Mend podcast episode if I didn't talk about my armpits for a moment, so there you go. Moving on, I am currently working on a few projects. Oh, before we get into that, I do want to give a little shout out to Valerie. Valerie is so sweet to me. She is a viewer here on my channel. She let me know she wanted to send me a little nifty gifty for the holidays, and I actually brought the ornament up. She sent me a few very generous gifts. One of them was this cute ornament, little paw print on the back. I just love this so much. I don't know if you know, I have a Christmas tree this year, and my entire tree is all gold, all vintage glass bulbs that I've picked up at the thrift store. And even though this isn't quite gold, it has just enough to match the rest, and it really reflects the bright lights of the tree. I just love it so much. This is so, Valerie is so generous and so kind, and she even followed up with a second package recently, included this cute little bag. I love that so much. She said to me, Taylor, every time you pull out your Stephen West shawl and drop stitches, it hurts. So thought these might help. Have a great day, Valerie. And I hope she doesn't mind sharing this because it just really warmed my heart so much to like know there's someone out there thinking of me. She sent these little snowflake stitch stoppers for your needles, and she also sent something I've really wanted for a long time. I've never invested in, but it's one of those little rubber cords that you can put your knitting onto if you want to try it on and you need an extra long cord. So I transferred my new project onto that so I could better show it to you. I just gave this a nice little steam blocking, and this is it. This is the new raglan that I am constructing. It's a fingering weight yarn held with a silk mohair to provide a DK weight fabric gauge. So I just started, and there is a beginnings of a cable motif that will be at the center chest. So that's a little sneak peek of that. It looks so small, but this is only about half of the yoke front top thing. So it looks like that I could stop right here and knit this for a child. But once I put it on and you kind of see how it fits, you can see it has a very loose sort of neck shape. Not very loose, just a little bit more relaxed. It's still gonna be a, what do you call that? Crew neck? Not a boat neck. Star Baby's stuck in my yarn right now. You can see that the shaping of the raglan and then the stitches across here, it looks a little bit wonky, but once I pick up for the collar and knit the few rows I have planned, that will all smooth out. And of course, I'm not even yet at the edge of the shoulder here. But that is the start of a new project I have planned. I'm drafting the pattern as I go. And because I've already designed a sweater pattern with this exact gauge, I have roughly the figures in place to grade it. I have to rework my numbers, of course. It's not as simple as recycling all of the math that I did, but I already have a general framework for grading. This is going to be a pullover, obviously. I'm really excited about that because I've loved wearing pullovers this fall and winter season. There's just something about throwing on a single piece that really makes the outfit. I like the simplicity of a pullover. And I think I want to dabble more into knitting t-shirts because I think that I would get a lot of wear out of those in the spring as well as the fall, and then I'll have more stuff to wear under my cardigans. So I'm really excited about this. I need to spend more time on this over the weekend because that's when I really have the mental energy to focus on writing down what I do as it's done. It's going to be a very short-lived cable motif. It's not going to extend the whole body of the sweater. At least I don't think it will. So that is that. Ooh, maybe, I just got an idea. I don't know, we'll see. Okay, so that is what I spent a fair bit of time on this past week. And this is my participation project for the Bougie Sweatshirt Knit-A-Ling hosted by Casey over at the Young Folk Knits podcast. And I don't think I've knit much on this guy, but I've still been working on Andrea's shifty cowl. So there's that, you know, this is still on my needles, and this is what I'll probably focus on in the evenings when I don't want to write down what I'm doing with the yoke of that design. So that's sort of my background project right now. Let's get into some questions. Oh, this is a thrifted garment I have to mend. One of my favorite things to do is find very well crafted knitwear and fix it when I can. This one has just a single little broken thread here I have to repair, as well as down this side, which will be a very easy fix. I just have to get around to that. Forgive my squeaky chair. She has a lot to say. Once again, if you would like to ask me anything, you can click on the link in the description box and it'll take you to a brief little forum. You just leave your name, what you want to hear about, and I'll get to it in the future. So I'm going pretty far back in time. I haven't checked in on this in a while. Kind of forgot how to find it in my Google Drive. Many months ago, Valerie asked, can you please talk about sleeve shaping? Not just the shoulder, but along the length of the arm. I would love to talk about sleeve shaping for a moment. So there are a lot of different ways to approach a sleeve, and they're all done generally one of two ways. You're either increasing or you're decreasing, which I think is fairly obvious. I tend to not introduce any decreases to my sleeves until I've passed the elbow, because I do want the elbow to have the most amount of room possible to really bend into and not completely alter the shape of the fabric or have, I don't know, I feel like the more space available to my elbow, the better. Unless it is, there's an incredible amount of ease to the upper arm and you really just have to start decreasing from the start in order to accommodate a more shaped forearm. So, you know, that can go many different ways. What I tend to do, oh, are you okay? If you were to not decrease at all, the fabric will appear more of a bell shape than you might think it would. So I think that if I were to have not at all decreased for this sleeve and just knit it straight, it would appear something more like that. And so you can exaggerate that shape by increasing and making it a bell shape. I have knit a bell-shaped sleeve. It's an orange sweater with lots of colors in the sleeves. That I didn't do any increasing at all. I just knit it straight. So if you don't do any decreasing, it will be a bell shape sleeve. It might be a mild bell. You can exaggerate it with increases to be a more exaggerated bell sleeve. But for the most part, I just introduce a few decreases to make it look like it's a straight sleeve. Now you can also knit a straight sleeve and then do a single round of however many decreases you need to get a cuff that fits the way you want. Top-down sleeves are the way to go with experimentation because you can knit a few rows and then rip it out if it doesn't work for you. I'm the type of person that will do anything in my best knitwear, so I like to pull my sleeves up and get dirty, and if I can't wear my sleeve pulled up, if it kind of stops at the mid forearm and doesn't sit there because it might be too tight or it could be too loose. Like for instance, that bell sleeve sweater that I have, I can't do anything in that sweater because I can't roll it up and it's not functional for me. So I hope I've said enough about sleeves right now. I'm not sure if I answered your question. Second question is, I was wondering if you have any advice for developing a personal style. I see all of these clothes, patterns, yarns that I think look great, but worry about how they would look with some of the things I already have. It gives me much anxiety when it comes to picking patterns or yarn. How do you choose colors or patterns to build up and complement a wardrobe that you will actually use? That's a good question. I worry about how they will look with some of the things I already have. Okay, well, I have to say, the things that I currently have are pretty basic things. I own a lot of jeans, and sometimes they're blue jeans, sometimes they're black jeans, and that's like what I pair the majority of my garments with. Sometimes I have like a rare skirt that I like to throw on, or even a dress. So I think it helps to have a very versatile wardrobe in general. I wonder what you like to wear. I guess I don't, personally, just as my preference, I don't gravitate towards colorful yarns. In general, like a lot of the sweater quantities that I pick up are neutrals. They are natural undyed colors, or they might be like my favorite color. Like I have had multiple sweater quantities of the same ochre olivey green shade. So I think that my best advice might to stick with neutrals, because neutrals match with everything. And maybe if you stumble across like that color you are obsessed with, like pick up a skein here and there. I like to wear neutrals, and I like to pair neutrals with a little bit of color, but not a lot of color. Like this is a good example. Like I love this yellow color here. Figure out maybe what it is that you just really like, and then I would trust your instinct. Reflect on your experiences with what you have made so far and determine what works for you and what doesn't. Like me, for instance, I've learned over time, as much as I want a yoke sweater. I know that yoke sweaters don't fit my frame the very best. So I'm consciously shifting towards other shoulder constructions that might fit my frame better than anything else. I like a top-down raglan because it's very simple to work. It's as simple, if not more so, than a yoke shape. And also, you know, a set and sleeve pattern might accommodate me well too, which is a very different sort of animal in terms of making. So when I'm choosing patterns to build a wardrobe, I first go with what's going to fit my frame better than ever, but also what am I going to enjoy making? Because I don't know, I guess I could make more pieced garments, but I just don't know if I want to. I think I'd rather sometimes work a top-down yoke sweater than a pieced sweater because of the process. Even if it doesn't fit as well, I would rather enjoy making it. And in terms of building a wardrobe you'll actually use, I would recommend going through what you have and getting rid of what you don't use. Just find somewhere else to rehome it or store it so that you have space for what you do use. And then just having that space available will, I think, spark interest and motivation to find what you're looking for. Sometimes you need like the absence of things to really hone in on what it is you need or you want. I hope that that advice is helpful. That inquiry was from Kaylin. Thank you, Kaylin. Next is from Eve. She asks, I do not have luck with sweaters pilling. Is there a trick when buying yarn? I don't know. I wonder what yarn you're buying. Some yarn pills, some yarn doesn't. A tighter gauge might prevent pilling. Some yarn just pills and it needs to be maintained. I do find that superwash, like merino worsted spun yarns, pill, and worse than that, they'll get little snags and these little like ponytails kind of pop out, and you have to use a little crochet hook to kind of pull them back into the fabric. That I think is worse than pilling in my mind because it shows a break of the fiber. Some yarn you can look at and it will start pilling. I think that's sort of the nature of the game. It'll happen sometimes. Alexis from Texas, that rhymes, asks, do you have a favorite top-down pullover pattern? I talked in last week's video. She did ask this question prior to that, but my favorite top-down pattern I've knit is the raglan I wore in last week's video. And I guess this is a shameless plug, but I am basing the dimensions of this pattern off of the dimensions that I executed by modifying Kate Davies' Ducat sweater, which is a top-down raglan. Other than that, which isn't available, I'm wondering if there's a pattern that you could purchase right now. The Manau colorwork yoke sweater is another favorite. I think that one, I don't recall modifying that one except for maybe in the sleeves. That is another great pattern. It fits very well. I'm very comfortable wearing that garment. So that's an Isabella Kramer pattern. A frustrated cat owner asks, how do you keep your cats from digging in and eating your plants? Also, do you keep them away from your candles? I do have a cat from the outdoors that I took in who was digging into some of my larger container plants and using it as a litter box. That was frustrating. And there were two ways we resolved that. One was we purchased lava rocks and we kind of layered those over top of the surface of the container, and that pretty much stopped it. There were a couple times still that she would get involved in the plants, and we used bamboo skewers, like kitchen skewers, and stuck those with the pointy sides up all around the perimeter and inside the container, so that it was just a very uninhabitable space for her to jump into, and that really worked. And then eventually in time we just removed those so that they were no longer there, and it looked a little bit more pleasant, and she just learned to kind of leave it alone. I don't have very inquisitive cats. They don't chew on my plants. I have had foster kittens that would get involved in my plants, and I just would move them out of reach. Sultry Kitchen, she has like tried to sniff a candle before, and I think she realized it's hot. In general, I just keep my candles out of reach because that is a true fire hazard. I know of multiple houses that have burned down because an animal will mess with a candle. So that is one of my biggest fears. I know which pieces of furniture my cats will explore and which ones they don't. So if I'm lighting a candle, I will keep it on my dresser. I will keep it next to me while I'm there. In general, my cats don't really explore certain surfaces. And so that's where I'll keep my candles if they're burning. Benedict asks, I really like what you've done with your Ducat pullover. Can you share your yarn and any other tips for your version? Yeah, I think that you might have commented on that video last week and said you found the info in my Ravelry page, but I did knit my more recent version of the Ducat sweater. I've knit it a couple times, but I knit the sweater I was wearing in last week's video with Elsa Wool's fingering weight woolen spun light Cormo yarn. I love Elsa Wool. If you're looking for a nice neutral sweater quantity, highly recommend checking out their website. They have a ton of different options, and it's pretty affordably priced for what it is. It's an excellent price, and they, I think, sell out of Canada. So if you're a US consumer, that might be an even better financial option for you. Highly recommend that base. And then I'm holding it with Isaar's Silk Mohair in the number 6 colorway. Love that color. I would knit more sweaters with the exact same combination of yarn. If I made 2 more sweaters with the same yarn, I would be thrilled to have those in my wardrobe. Obviously some difference in the sweater design, but I love that fabric. Something about the length of the fibers of that particular brand of silk mohair, it's just something special. Shippy is asking for a bathroom break, and I'm going to take you outside and view the garden for a moment. Before we do that though, I'll just briefly tell you about some of the seeds I picked up for the 2023 growing season. Obviously, I bought these from Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds. They're one of my favorite seed suppliers because they have a huge variety, and I love to try new things. The first I got was the Cherokee Sunset Rebeckia. Rebeckia is the state flower of Maryland. It grows very well here, and I wanted to add a little bit of variety to my garden, so I got a different sort of bloom, and I hope that this might work out. I also bought a calendula mix called Playtime, which has a lot of different color blooms, and calendula is another flower that I have had success growing in my garden, so I'm excited to plant this out. I do find that calendula does very well in the early spring season and the very late summer, early fall. Like, it will kind of fizzle out in the hot heat of that deep summer, but it will like totally reseed itself and then bounce back with a ton of vigor and really last like into the winter. So I'm excited to find more areas in the garden that I will intentionally plant calendula and maybe maintain a little calendula patch throughout the majority of the season. I got another sunflower variety. This is the Red Sun. This is one that has multiple branches of flowers, which I prefer because then you can kind of cut them and add them to bouquets and such. I bought a variety of Swiss chard. This is one that's kind of similar to spinach, but it only requires about 4 to 8 hours of sun, which is less than a typical spinach variety. So I'm hoping I will have success in growing greens this year. And then I picked up a bunch of zinnias because I do intend to grow flowers in my neighbor's garden. They have given me the option to plant into their space if I wish to, which I've started cultivating last summer. I dug the bed. No, I didn't dig the beds. I did do a no-dig approach, but I do like to dig out the perimeter of the bed to really establish the grassy area from the garden bed. So I will dig what is essentially a bit of a trench, and then I will go back a few weeks later and redig it so that it's a very separate area from the rest, and the grass won't kind of, it looks a little bit tidier. And then I laid down cardboard, I gathered leaves, I gathered soil from areas where it did not need to be, and I started these no-dig beds. So this is the first year that I'm ready to start plants from seed. Last year I did put a few plants into those beds to just see how the sun really covers the space. I did learn that even though they have a much bigger area, they don't really get any more sun than I do. So I can grow some peppers, I can grow some tomatoes, but I'm trying to find other things that will do well. And because they have a lot less happening in their garden, I think that I can grow the flowers I wish I could grow in my space that I don't have room for. So I've picked up quite a few zinnia packets to grow an entire bed of zinnias in my neighbor's garden. I have the Queenie Lemon Peach, the Queen Lime Red, and the Queen Lime Orange. I think I might try to grow these in my neighbor's yard as well. There's a little area where they get a lot more sun than we do, and this one does require 8 to 12 hours. So it's possible this may or may not succeed. I have low expectations though. And then the last two are types of bok choy. I will spare you my hacked pronunciation of those, but they do both require only 4 to 6 hours of sunlight. So I'm optimistic that I'll be able to grow vegetables in my garden to consume. I have some garlic overwintering and a few perennial flowers, my blueberries, my raspberries, my peach tree, my pawpaw trees, and I'll give you a little garden tour, show you what it looks like over winter. I've been pruning and training my peach tree. You can see I have some hand-spun yarn tied to a rock over here and a brick over there. And I've pruned her back a fair bit, some thinning cuts, and yep, we should have some healthy growth on those larger branches this year, I hope. And this blueberry is doing the best out of all of them. You can see it has a ton of buds. This is the blueberry that I accidentally broke in half and is not doing quite as well as the others. But I do have a new rose bush planted right next to it that is finally taking off. Well, it did take off, it's just surviving through winter right now. But I have a couple brown-eyed Susans I started from seed here and here. And then my echinacea has died back and is putting on a little bit of new growth here and there. This is a sage bush that I hacked back to nearly nothing because it was completely covered in squash last year. And then this bed is typically where I plant my sunflowers. They kind of provide a little bit of a backdrop to this bed here, and it's where I get the most sun. And you can see I have a couple rows of garlic planted. My containers have all kind of died back. I did buy, for no good reason, a alpine spruce, and it was in a small little container, so I figured if I have more than 3 inches on all sides, it'll be all right through the winter. And then I have my brand new lilac tree that I put into this very large container. And over here I have a hukara holding down one of my 2 cat houses. This is our seasonal cat house that we only bring out in the colder months. And then under this plastic trash bag, I have hidden the year-round cat hutch for the feral colony out here that I feed twice a day. So I I also have in containers a new to me rose bush and some strawberries. These are stinging nettles that I transplanted from this large container I took back, but I don't know if they're actually gonna come through. I think that they're dead. But in this total shaded area, I have a few heucheras, hellebores. I forget the name of this plant. Oh, Solomon seal. This is an evergreen variety. It gets torn up by something around here. I'm not sure what. But just a few of those. And of course, I have hostas, but you wouldn't see them this time of year. They have all died back for the winter. And I just spread my compost bin. I have oregano here, just underneath my pawpaw tree number 1. And then number 2, we have a third pawpaw tree right over there. Black raspberries have taken over this entire area that nothing else really thrives in. It doesn't get quite a lot of sun, maybe just a couple hours. And then I have a bunch of yellow daffodils. This is a new to me, what is this called? Hydrangea. So it's putting out a lot of new growth at the base here, which is very exciting. There was a little yarrow plant. This is a heather. I don't know if this is gonna really bounce back. I should probably maybe trim it. I've never really grown heather. I think it might need more sun than it gets over here, but you can see behind that black raspberry, not raspberry, this is a blackberry bush. I have some asparagus. I do need to cut that back to ground level. And my raspberry patch. It has gotten a bit weak in the center. Right around here, there's like nothing growing. So I was thinking about buying another raspberry cane, or maybe a different variety to grow amongst these. But you can see that they really like one side of this bed. That originally it was just here, and then it slowly crept all the way over to this side. So I don't know, we'll see. There might be a lot of new growth this season. And I think I might put something in the middle there, like another variety. I haven't made up my mind yet. And eventually I will tie up all of the canes. Right now I just have the canes along the fence trellised with some covered wire. But that is the backyard garden. Would you like to see my compost bin? Oh, this is my third blueberry. This is my second favorite variety. My favorite is the Misty Blueberry. This one is South Moon. I was thinking about getting more, but the high bush varieties grow quite large, and I don't think I have space for more. And then this is our fig tree. I was thinking about pruning it back so that it grows a little bit more bushy, but I haven't determined if I should. Maybe just a little bit so it doesn't grow into the alleyway so much. But here's my compost bins. I have one, this is just leaves that I've gathered in the front and backyard spaces. I kind of maintain the alleyway, so I will gather any leaves that fall back here with my leaf blower, and I will keep it clean. And then this is my actual compost bin. So you can see I haven't covered it very well. There's some food poking out, but it looks like it's now close to an ideal temperature. It's at about 95 degrees right now. And I flipped it about a week ago. So I might flip it again sooner than later so that I can get it nice and hot. That is my compost right now. And Shippy and I are wearing matching sweaters. Should have featured her in my video more, but finally we match one another. And the sweater is very warm. You hear all those birds are in that tree over there. There's a bunch of birds in this tree right above us. That is it for this week's episode of the Threads Men podcast. If you've made it this far into this week's video, let me know in a comment below with your favorite flower emoji. And if you want to find me on social media, my name is Taylor E. Owen on Ravelry and Instagram. I'm over on TikTok as Taylor Knits. I hope you all have a wonderful day, a wonderful week. Thank you so much for being here, and take care.